I am what I am because the people, you people, have made me what I am.
Mugabe was the great independence leader, but ultimately the worst verdict on him is that he's helped destroy his country's economy and society. He created havoc and mayhem in the Zimbabwean economy and has impoverished millions of Zimbabweans.
Zimbabwe's in a catastrophic state. The economy is in free fall. You've got inflation of about 1,700%, highest rate of inflation in the world. You find that ordinary Zimbabweans think about nothing except surviving the day and feeding their children. That's all they can think about.
Right now, there are some people going very hungry, and yes, there's malnutrition. And that is going to get worse unless there's a real effort to bring more food into the country.
In fairness, there are some aspects of Zimbabwe's disaster which you can't entirely attribute to Robert Mugabe. The AIDS epidemic, for example. But if you leave that one aside, every other aspect of the crisis can be very clearly blamed on Robert Mugabe's actions over the last 10 years in particular. Back in 1980, when he first took office, and he presented a very hopeful, optimistic future for Zimbabwe, he was firmly, securely in power.
He was clearly extremely popular. Mugabe positioned himself as this sort of dynamic anti-imperialist fighter, and that was his card. But he started off on a very reconciliatory note. It seems maybe difficult to understand now, but at the time he cut a sort of Nelson Mandela-style figure.
What changed around about the year 2000 was he became seriously threatened. The economy was beginning to collapse. That gave rise to a serious opposition party, and that confronted him with the real possibility that he would lose power. And so he fell back on repression as a means of staying in power.
He seized on the land issue, and by seizing on the land issue and doing it in the wrong way, about 80,000 people were displaced from the farms to elsewhere in the country. So they lost those skills, they lost that labour, and as a result, the agricultural sector really went into a lot of difficulties after that.
Opposition politicians are harassed on a daily basis. They can be locked up for the most minor offences or even non-existent offences. At an extreme level, they can be assaulted, and some have even been murdered. So it's an extremely dangerous business opposing Robert Mugabe.
Oh, terrible. Terrible.
It was a horrible assault.
Well, it was a sadist attack on defenseless people.
We don't recognize this illegitimate regime of Robert Mugabe. We're going to continue to defy them. We don't recognize Posa. We don't recognize Robert Mugabe. They're criminals.
Zimbabweans, if they want change, must have to be prepared to die to get that change, because anyone who tries to fight Mugabe is going to be killed. You have to recognize that. He's going to use violence against you as a ruthless guy.
He may not be very good at running a country, but he is very good at staying in power and at managing his own party and playing off his opponents against one another.
He's an immensely disciplined guy to start off with. He's a teetotaler. He doesn't smoke. He exercises regularly. Most people, you look at him, most people think he's 20 years younger than he actually is. He has that, and he also has quite an easy wit and charm. So the combination of charm and political ruthlessness has really paid off, and it's enabled him to stay in power.
Our people are happy and fulfilled, and this is all that matters to us.
I don't think foreign intervention is a serious possibility. It's not going to happen. South Africa clearly isn't going to take any major steps.
I think the big failure of South Africa's policy has been that diplomacy just hasn't worked. They talk about quiet diplomacy. Well, fine, if it works, great, but it just hasn't worked. I think the Western countries could do a lot more if they looked at smart sanctions, targeting the business brains behind the ruling elite.
There'll be two sides to his legacy. On the one hand, he will be the man who will always be remembered as the father of modern Zimbabwe and the man who brought independence and liberation from white rule. On the other hand, he will be remembered as the man who, having created this country, destroyed it. And his successors are going to have to spend years, perhaps decades, clearing up the mess he made.